Here comes Booker, slicing in. Got it! Fourth time's a charm for Phoenix. There's Gordon, off balance. Ayton was there to bother the shot. Durant and Booker, 86 points between them in Game 3. KD lighting the lamp from...
Yo, what's up, YouTube? Wherever you're at, or however you're watching, thanks for checking out the video. So Bradley Beal was traded by the Washington Wizards to the Phoenix Suns, and I want to talk about that in today's video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. And with that, let's dive in. So looking at the moving pieces in this trade, Bradley Beal has officially been traded to the Phoenix Suns from the Washington Wizards for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, and the Suns also received Jordan Goodwin and Isaiah Todd. My first immediate takeaway is the new Suns owner is making moves, and he seems to be prioritizing the immediate future over planning or ensuring themselves for a few years down the road. Matt Ishbia purchased control of the Phoenix Suns from Robert Sarver around December of 2022, and it seems like he's been making power moves ever since. He started his reign by trading the Suns' first-round picks for KD when the opportunity presented itself, and then they basically did the same thing with their second-round picks for Bradley Beal. I did see a reaction online from Josh Hart when the trade was announced, and I'm not sure if that's Josh Hart's legit verified account, but either way, I'm guessing he forgot about the KD trade. So it's clear to me that the Suns are all in for now, and I can always respect that, but we know the value of insurance and planning for the future. So those are my immediate thoughts, but let's dive a little deeper into the positive and negatives of this trade. I think for the Wizards, there's value in getting off the enormous contract they signed Beal to, and maybe now they are in a position for some sort of three-team trade now that they have Chris Paul or his contract, depending on how you view that. For the Suns now, they clearly have the most talented four-team roster, which, in my opinion, puts them in prime position as a contender for an NBA title next year. Granted, they stay healthy. And I think adding Beal for sure makes the Suns a better regular season team, granted, health again. And it's clear that Bradley Beal is younger, a capable playmaker, and a more reliable scorer than Chris Paul at this point. Closing out the positives on the DeAndre Ayton topic, the Suns somehow kept DeAndre Ayton while acquiring Beal, and maybe this is a result of Beal's contract being so bad and the timing of it all. But for the Suns, I think for now, they preserve their ability to still play big and small at the same time while doing so. So this also leaves them the opportunity to have or utilize one final piece that they may be able to flip for more wing versatility or better rim protection overall later down the road.
Here's Beal seeing a lot of active hands, and he goes off glass, and he gets it to go. Bradley Beal with his 19th point, and he is pumped.
But that did not let him down. His eye is on the prize right here. I don't know what type of move that was.
Looking at summer camp, adding Beal now for the Suns enables them to have a full camp and offseason with KD, Booker, and Beal together alongside the new coach. So that's pretty much all the positives I have thinking about this trade at this point in time. And so we'll transition into some of the negatives and my views on that aspect of the trade. Getting into some of the negatives of this trade, on the Wizards front, I think Washington gave up Beal for almost nothing. And really that only applies if they don't end up flipping Chris Paul ultimately in some kind of way that brings back young, versatile talent. I do go back and forth with if the return they got for Beal is truly a negative, considering his contract has not aged all that well. But regardless, in my opinion, timing is the key critical determining factor for the Wizards in analyzing this trade overall for them. I think now was probably the worst time to trade Beal for the Wizards, considering we're at a time when his value is the lowest. Moving on to the Suns, I think the Suns inheriting Beal's contract could be problematic down the line since he's making $50 million a year starting next season in 2024. So with that, I think it really brings to question, what is Bradley Beal's true value? Another potential negative for the Suns is redundancy in style of play between Booker, Beal, and KD. And this is almost self-explanatory, but aside from being excellent three-point shooters, which truly is never a negative, right? They all three like to operate with similar play styles, specifically with deep fades and pull-ups in the low or high post.
And the electricity in terms of the offensive firepower in this game, just something to behold right now. Durant.
Layup in transition, they went right to him, shot that with confidence.
Booker, that mid-range game, just deadly.
Beal, floater, over Embiid, counted.
And as we see here, they love the elbow also, and just the mid-range in general. We saw this last season in the playoffs against the eventual champions, and what we saw is that as great as KD and Booker are in those areas, they just didn't create close to the same quality shots as Denver. So this leaves me worried that adding Beal just kind of exasperates some of the issues of last year if they choose not to tweak their style of play. Also, Booker or Beal will have to facilitate, with the only other guard left being Cameron Payne. But that's not as much of a concern because both Beal and Booker have shown the ability to be willing playmakers. But either way, I kind of like the idea of a more traditional point guard, but it'll be interesting to see how this team meshes together in that facet moving forward. Regardless of the style of basketball they choose to play moving forward, another concern I have is injuries. Beal has been injury prone the last few years in addition to KD and Booker, and although I respect the Suns for going all in and building around their superstar talent now, I think not having the most durable superstars as the core that you're building around, essentially, and a lack of draft capital, plus questionable depth, could leave the Suns in a precarious position later on down the road. So to land this discussion, this trade, interestingly enough, makes me think of the Heat and how them missing out on Beal can impact their future decisions and next season even. It leads me to wonder, is Damian Lillard their true last hope to acquire a big fish? Or are they truly committed to the one superstar surrounded by a good supporting cast model? Either way, I am a fan of Jimmy Buckets, and I think Coach Spo is the best in the game, so I'll be tuned in to see what's next for the Miami Heat world and culture. Getting back to the teams that are actually a part of this trade or directly impacted, I think the Suns won the trade considering what they gave up to acquire Bradley Beal, but I think acquiring his contract could be problematic moving forward. I think this is something to consider based on the fact that he'll be the sixth highest paid player in the league at the start of the 2024 season, and the Suns are already paying $50 million to KD and Booker respectively as well that year. So the Suns do have a pick in the 2023 NBA draft, which is in the late 50s, and they do still have DeAndre Ayton to use as a final trade piece if they need. They will have other limited options to flesh the roster out, like go through veteran minimal contracts, the bargain shopping, trade exceptions, etc., or even the trade deadline. But all in all, for the Suns, I think there's still many questions to answer in the upcoming season. Like, does adding a new defensive-minded coach in Frank Vogel improve their team holistically? Does adding a new star in Bradley Beal to replace CP3 and Shamet solve their issues of last year? And when I say issues of last year, I'm referring to injuries, defense, and DeAndre Ayton just not reaching his full potential. Either way, I think we can all clearly see the Suns are all in for now. And so it'll be fun to see where this goes. Back on the Wizards front, the Wizards showed us that they will be the Wizards. And by trading Bradley Beal now, I think they made a move that we've come to expect them to make. Beal's value was a little higher at last year's trade deadline, and they probably would have gotten more value in return for Beal if they traded him at this year's trade deadline. Looking at the numbers, Bradley Beal's contract is outrageous, totaling around nearly $50 million or above $50 million next year. And considering Chris Paul's contract, it's likely that he doesn't play a minute for the Wizards, which ultimately means that the Wizards potentially traded Bradley Beal for just Shamet and second-round picks, which might not age well, but only time will tell. The main question left to be answered, from my point of view, is will the Suns trade DeAndre Ayton? That seems to be the biggest question I have. It seems that having the ability to play big and small in today's current NBA is the model for success, but I do think it's fair to question DeAndre Ayton's fit depending on what other trades present themselves. Ayton's defensive willingness also impacts KD. And if this is the case, this puts a lot of strain on an aging Kevin Durant. But I guess we'll have to wait and see on everything that is DeAndre Ayton. Getting back to the Wizards front, the Wizards are the Wizards. And so the only question I have for them now is what will they do with Chris Paul? Where does he land next year? Or should the Wizards keep him for now and use him as a trade value piece later in the year? Fascinating questions that I cannot wait to find the answers for. So to wrap this up, my view is the Suns win the trade for now, but face money issues and questions around the fit of their big three going into next season. And for the Wizards, if you're watching the Bradley Beal highlights that I'm currently looking at, I think it's fair for anyone to make a case that Washington got fleeced. But they do. They get off a questionable contract under questionable circumstances. And lastly, a question that this presents for the NBA as a whole is the Big Three model a guaranteed formula for success? All right, well, that's all I have for today. Some open questions I'll leave for everyone to think about are, what do you think about this trade overall? Do you think the Suns will trade DeAndre Ayton, and if so, when? And is the Big Three a guaranteed formula for success? Go ahead and let me know your thoughts on all of this and the trade overall in the comments below, and share the video if you like the discussion. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more basketball content like this. With that, I'm out, and I'll see you next time. Peace.